This is my second video comparing the performance of Presidents Joe Biden and Donald Trump. My first video compared gross domestic product, or GDP, during the Trump and Biden presidencies. This video will focus on national unemployment rate and the labor participation rate. We all know that Kamala Harris has replaced Joe Biden as the candidate for the Democratic Party. But the data we have was taken during the Trump and Biden administrations. My assumption is Harris will carry forward similar policies with respect to job creation. I want to clarify a few definitions before we get into the data. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, or BLS, the labor force participation rate is the number of people in the labor force as a percentage of the civilian, non-institutional population. In other words, the participation rate is the percentage of the population that is working or actively looking for work. Unemployed people are those who do not have jobs but are actively searching for a job. The unemployment rate is the number of unemployed people as a percentage of the labor force. Out-of-work people who are not looking for work are not part of the labor force, so they are not counted as unemployed. Now let's look at the data. When President Trump took office, the labor participation rate was 62.8%. The average across the first 3 years was 63%, with a high point of 63.3% over a 5-month period just before the COVID pandemic. Trump's average does not include the COVID pandemic because its historic impact, in my view, should be analyzed independently of the other data. My next video will be a detailed state-by-state look at how the state unemployment rates differed during the pandemic. Back to my analysis. So far during the Biden administration, the average labor participation rate has been 62.3%. But this average is low in part because President Biden inherited a 61.3% participation rate when he took office in January 2021. Since then, the participation rate peaked at 62.8%, representing a 1.5% increase since President Biden took office. But it's worth pointing out that the participation rate seems to have plateaued, maintaining an average of 62.7% over the last year. This is about 0.5% below the start of the COVID pandemic. Now let's look at unemployment. When President Trump took office, the national unemployment rate was 4.7%. Over the next 3 years, the rate dropped to 3.5% in February 2020. The average during that time was 3.9%. Then COVID lockdowns started, and by April 2020, the unemployment rate had reached 14.8%. This is the highest unemployment rate in more than 75 years. We recovered some, and when Trump left office, unemployment was at 6.1%. As stated in my last video, President Trump gets the credit or blame for how the economy performed during the COVID pandemic in 2020. Our nation's COVID response was very complicated, so that topic will be addressed in another video. This video focuses on the non-COVID years. Unemployment was 6.1% when President Biden took office in January 2021. Over the next year, our country continued to recover, and by January 2022, unemployment had reached 4%. Since then, the average unemployment rate has been 4.0%. However, while unemployment for the first 2 years after COVID was 3.6%, it started rising in 2024. As of August 2024, it is now 4.2%. Unemployment is growing. Remember, participation rate over the last year is basically unchanged. This plot shows both participation and unemployment. As I mentioned before, our COVID response significantly influenced employment in our country, so it will be discussed in depth in my next video. For comparison, I'm assuming the last year of Trump's administration and the first year of Biden's administration are overshadowed by COVID policy. When looking at the pre- and post-COVID months, more Americans were working during the Trump administration than the Biden administration. During President Trump's administration, participation rose and unemployment fell. During President Biden's administration, participation rose but has still not reached the pre-COVID levels. Unemployment is now rising. Based on the metrics described in this video, President Trump's record on jobs is better than President Biden's. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more.